Hey, soul friend. Listen, I have spent my entire life being someone who had zero discipline, and I just could not figure out the consistency game whatsoever. I was gooped all the time around consistency. I recently, this past year, have really been able to unlock consistency, and today I want to break down all the ways that I changed in order to really become a more consistent person. And it's wild because I have friends and people come to me now all the time asking me how I became more consistent and more disciplined. And I just want to make sure that I can share this knowledge and this lived experience and data so that you can unlock your consistency and become more consistent in whatever practice it is you are trying to pursue. Before we talk about the tactical how and the what of consistency, I want to share something that nobody ever talks about when it comes to discipline and consistency. And it's this idea that it's not so much about habit stacking and pattern recognition as it is about making this quiet decision within yourself that you are no longer going to be that person who is not consistent. The root really begins and ends with the identity that we have attached to consistency and discipline. So let's start with what consistency actually is. Consistency is a neutral thing. This is such a big one that I don't think enough people really understand, but consistency does not make you a better person. And if you think that being more consistent makes you a better person, then before we do anything, we all got to sit down and have a slice of humble pie. It is a neutral thing, and it is so important that we start with the neutrality of it. There is so many stories that we begin to attach with, oh, if you're consistency, you're good, and if you're not consistent, there's shame attached to it. And we'll get into that in the episode, but I really want to start with that because consistency is neutral. The function and purpose of consistency is to show us what matters to us. It reveals our priorities. We can say what's important to us, but if our actions and our habits don't match that, then the words don't have any weight to them. Consistency is a portal to help build self-trust, and it's the very mechanism that we use to bridge the gap between who we are right now and who we want to be. Let's lay the foundation. The first thing I want you to understand is your word is your wand. Insert any Harry Potter reference here, but it is so true. When there's a disconnect between what we say and what we do, we begin to erode that inner self-trust. The more we do this and the more data that we collect when we repeat this habit over and over again, the more that part of us gets weaker and weaker. The great and amazing part is that we can always rebuild no matter where we're at. But we have to first start with planting a simple seed that we are capable of change. And from that small seed, everything begins to grow. And something that might sound counterintuitive is that in order to become a more consistent person, we have to be inconsistent. What I mean by that is that so much of the time when we are actively pursuing, like, I want to be consistent at this practice, there is a level of precision that we're attaching to it, like a level of mastery that we've attached to it, versus the reality is when you are starting to become more consistent in anything, it is messy as hell. It is really messy and really inconsistent because that inner trust has not fully locked in. But when the inner self-trust is locked in, that's when there's more ease and more automation in how we move with that practice. So As we start diving into the more tactical things in this episode, I want you to remember that whatever resonates with you, please keep it and let it germinate inside of you. But whatever doesn't resonate, you can compost it. It is not personal whatsoever. And if nothing resonates, you are also more than welcome to just hang. But first things first, hi, I'm Aisha. I'm a meditation teacher, writer, and host of this podcast, Monsoon Season. Monsoon Season is all about culture, consciousness, and the courage it takes to be seen. And I'm on a mission to help good-hearted people win by really stepping fully into the gifts that are inherently encoded in you and using that to help serve humanity and the greater good. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so excited to see this community grow. Take a moment to like and subscribe to the podcast. And I would love if you could leave a comment if there's something that resonates with you in this episode and it just hits. Like, I really love seeing what resonates in the comments because it gives me ideas on what kind of episodes I want to build in the future as well. And I love hearing your stories. So thank you so much for being here, and let's keep going. These are the 10 tactics that have helped me become a consistent and more disciplined person. The first thing I want you to remember is you are already consistent with something. It don't matter what it is. We are going to find and discover that thing and bring our mind's awareness to it. For me, that was feeding my dog. It could be that for you, it's brushing your teeth. I hope all of us are brushing our teeth twice a day. But brushing our teeth, making our coffee, or making our cup of tea, whatever it is, you are not someone who cannot be consistent because you are consistent with a bunch of things just to live a life and just to be able to function in this world. There is things that you are consistent with, but we're not always giving credit in those areas, or we're not bringing conscious awareness into those areas. So the first thing we want to do is really bring our awareness to that, because it helps really nourish that seed that we're planting and that identity that we are a consistent person. So really start noticing, because wherever we bring that attention, our energy will build from that place and will flow from that place. So number 2 is a very, very common mistake, which is a lot of people start too big. So my suggestion is start embarrassingly small. I will use meditation a lot as an example because I'm a meditation teacher, but you can really apply this to anything, with writing, with working out, with wanting to bake more. I don't know or care what it is, but whatever it is, like create more content, anything, right? So just remember, I'm using meditation as an empty example. With meditation, I see a common problem happen a lot when people are trying to build a consistent meditation practice, and it's always they want to start with meditating 30 minutes a day every single day. When we haven't fully even established any practice, going and leaping, steps and ladders ahead is only going to feel really crummy. So what I recommend is making something embarrassingly small. So meditating 2 minutes every single day. I remember when I started building a meditation practice, I was meditating in my bathtub. Like, I would be taking a shower and then I would just sit down in my bathtub while my conditioner was in my hair, and I would sit down and just close my eyes and meditate for 2 minutes while I was waiting for my conditioner to nourish. So it was like a little twofer. I was getting my hair conditioned and using a little hair mask, and I was getting my meditation in. So I snuck it in there, and I made sure that it was just 2 minutes, and I didn't try to overdo it. I just knew that as long as I got the 2 minutes done, I was being consistent. What I noticed over time was I wanted to have 5 minutes. I wanted my practice and my sits to be longer, and I wanted to start carving out the space. But it starts with just committing to something that is so embarrassingly simple that you are like, I'd be dumb to not do it. So make it as simple as possible. It could even be for me with going to the gym. It's sometimes just like showing up and walking in and walking out. I literally spent months, I remember years ago, just going to the gym, going into the locker room and walking out, and just getting the habit of being someone who goes to the gym. I didn't even get to the workout parts yet, but I digress. I just wanted to share that because make it small. And if it's embarrassing, then that's the place you should be starting from. When we fall off of our streak and our consistency, instead of beating yourself up when you fall off, we must rejoice when we remember to come back. This is something that I learned specifically in meditation teacher training. So it's common when you're sitting in meditation that you will get distracted. And if you're human, you will get distracted by your mind and the thoughts that are running in your mind, or maybe a sensation in your body or whatever it is. And how I was taught meditation was that we must rejoice when we remember. There's this mental hook. We bring awareness when we have a distraction, and then there's this mental hook that triggers in our brain that says, oh, I'm distracted now, gotta go back to that practice. And that mental hook is something that my teacher would say is like, we rejoice when we remember that we forgot. And the same thing, I literally took that and copy and pasted it in all of my other practices with creating, with my business. And I am someone who notoriously is hard on myself, and I would beat myself up so much that I would just associate that habit or that practice with this feeling of shame. And it's so important that we joyfully come back to our practice. The returning joyfully is the part that rewires your brain, not the streak. So celebrate every single time you forget or you miss or you fall, come back with joy. We can actually choose to come back to our practice that we've fallen off of with joy. And that to me is so much more empowering than beating yourself up and stewing in that shame. Okay, this is a really big one too. You can suck, but you cannot skip. These are not my words. This is actually a quote that I'm borrowing from Sharan Srivatsa. This to me really is about deconstructing the perfectionism that is so deeply imbued on consistency so much of the time. We associate it with this perfect streak, and sometimes we put this undue pressure on ourselves to show up perfectly, but showing up and getting the rep in is all that really matters at this point. We forget sometimes that just the showing up means that we've accomplished what we were there to do. Not how good is it, or how, like, it's not our job to judge the work at this point. Consistency, if your goal is consistency, then the sheer act of showing up and sucking or being good is irrelevant. So this to me has given me so much freedom, because I have had a lot of meditations that sucked and did not feel great, but I still showed up anyway. And this allowed me to really look at consistency in a very different way. So this one is very, very difficult in our modern day. It's this true understanding and belief that I have that if we fix our attention span, we fix our life. This is why I love meditation so much as a mechanism and a tool for people to help take their power back in terms of their attention currency. Consistency is also just a downstream of our attention. If we can't keep our attention on something for 5 minutes, then we won't be able to pursue our dream for 5 years. We won't have that resilience and the endurance that is needed. So consistency to me is about fortifying that endurance and that stability, and that comes with being able to like have full power and awareness of our own attention. So if you are over consuming content, if you are really not able to sit with yourself for a few minutes, then that is something worth looking at. That might be kind of the blind spot for you in your consistent practice. The next one is neutrality and the narratives you attach to falling off. When we break our consistency, the story that we attach to breaking it is something that is worth looking at. So for example, I would break a consistent streak and I would automatically beat myself up and start saying, wow, like, okay, Aisha, you're not a consistent person. You'll never be disciplined. Like, this is not something new. Like, why did you even try in the first place? Like, all of those things is not real. Those are all stories that I'm starting to attach to the practice. And so the more we can let go of the narratives that come along with the consistency practice, the more likely we are to even just stay on track. And I have had times where I've had a day or 2 days or 3 days where I've fallen off. And when I use this mentality and this mindset of neutrality, I'm like, oh, okay. It's as if the chain was never broken. I just come back without attaching the shame, without attaching the guilt to it. Because the more I attach a story, the heavier this practice becomes. And then the more I resent the practice or the thing that I'm trying to do. So it's really so important to understand the importance of neutrality because it makes the practice lighter. Trust the invisible season. The reason that consistency sometimes just doesn't feel good or rewarding is because we are looking for the results. We are looking for the karma to ripen and the outcome to meet us visually. And consistency doesn't work that way. I really think of consistency as a bamboo shoot. Bamboo takes years to grow under the ground, and I think it's like the 5th year it shoots up really, really high, but all of this growth is happening in the roots and under the ground. All of this invisible growth is happening, and then year 5 hits and it's like blasting off and just going, full steam ahead and having explosive growth. Consistency works the same exact way. We cannot attach consistency and the act of showing up for the practice with a result because it will cause a lot of suffering within us. We have to remember that the practice itself is what is the reward, and that the fruits of the seeds that you've planted and that bamboo is going to shoot up when you least expect it. I wanted to remind you of that because I know it's hard when the results are invisible, but they're there, they're happening, and they're germinating within you, and you have to trust that. Document, document, document. Document your journey of consistency. It could be on your notes app, it could be in a journal, it can be on voice notes, it can be in Notion, wherever it is, write it down, voice note, track it, text a friend, whatever it is so important to have proof and documentation of what you're doing because our mind will play games with us and our feelings will lie to us and tell us that, oh, well, you haven't really done that much. And then when you look at the data, the research and the data will not lie to you. And so having it documented somewhere, I just love having a little Notion chart where I track my meditations or I track the different things habits that I'm trying to stay consistent with. Having it documented really allows me to trust that there is proof of showing up. There is proof of attendance. And it's so useful when we are in our feelings, because we could just go to the document and be like, yeah, conscious mind, subconscious mind, what did you say? No, I've been sitting like this many times this year or whatever. And it's just so important to have it documented so that we have the evidence and the proof of showing up, which is the whole damn point. And I love the documenting because it becomes material and fertilizer for your story, that new identity that begins to emerge, that you are a person who is consistent and disciplined. A big one is find your community, find your people. We all know that accountability really helps, but I also want to lean into this a little bit more and say step away from or take some time away from people who are inconsistent. Being around inconsistent people is such an easy way to also fall off track. And I say that because if you're around inconsistent people who don't really support this practice or this thing that you're really trying to be consistent with, they'll always be like, oh yeah, no, take a day off. You deserve it. You earned it. You should reward yourself for like doing it. Like you really should take a day off. You need people who are there to really understand what is important to you and who are not trying to make life easier for you, but who are there to remind you of why this matters, and that your self-trust and that your discipline to yourself and your devotion to yourself is as strong as oak. That's what matters. And so being around people who are a little bit like dilly-dallying around it and don't understand the importance of it is not the best thing. So if you can spend some time away from those types of people and spend time around more disciplined people, you will notice that it will really increase the inertia that you have with your practice. And the last thing I'll say is find an expert or hire a coach. There is no need to do it on your own. You don't get an award for just white knuckling it on your own. I know this from my own experience and my resistance to asking for help or hiring mentors and coaches. And as soon as I started doing that, I felt so much more relief and so much more joy in all of my endeavors with consistency and discipline, because you have someone who, hopefully this person holds you down and really is there for you to not judge you, and you go to when you're falling off and to also celebrate and rejoice when you come back. Having someone in your corner who really is rooting for you and has been through it is everything. I happen to also be a coach, and I coach a lot of people to help people get more consistent with their practice and to unblock these inner blocks within them so that they can really be their biggest, most expansive self in their business and their projects and life, in all of their relationships. If you are interested in that at all, you can check out the discovery call link where we can figure out if we're a good match for each other. And I would love to coach you if that is something that would be supportive in your discipline and consistency journey. If you take anything from this episode, just remember you are not someone who lacks discipline. You are just someone who has been waiting for that right entry point and that right story that you can start to begin to tell yourself. Start small, return joyfully, suck but don't ever skip. All of these practices are here to help enhance and make our lives better, not to make us suffer more. And if there's just one thing you take away from this episode, it is to remember that your word is your wand. In a world that is as chaotic as ours, we must be reliable. We must be able to rely on ourselves and to know that when we say we will do something, we follow through and show up for ourselves. That is all we have. That in today's world is a heroic act, and we need more heroes like you. So it's important to take these ordinary, consistent practices out into the world and be the extraordinary beings that we were meant to be. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching.